Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manoj Jain. I'm the co-founder, director of RiskPro. And along with me, we have Ashita, who will be taking over the session on India's version of data protection regulation. I'll be sharing my screen, and then after a minute of quick introduction, we'll hand it over to Ashita, who will take over and discuss the nuances of the proposed law that we are going to have in India. Essentially, the regulation is very important, possibly at the right time in terms of its implementation. So it's important for us to understand how it works along with the global regulations. Today being the anniversary of GDPR. Quick introduction slide about RiskPro, and we are essentially a risk consulting firm. We specialize in risk management, regulatory compliances. A little bit about the logistics, because on and off people may not have issues. So we'll be covering the topic in about 50 minutes. In the end, we'll have 5 or 10 minutes question and answers. Whenever you have a question, you can send it through the question window that you have, or the chat window that you would have, and you can select send question to organizers. And when you do that, the questions will keep rolling in, but we will take the questions towards the end. If there's any issue, you can raise your hand. You'll not be able to talk because this is a one-way communication. And if you have any problem seeing the screen, then you can always refresh or try logging in again. So I'll go ahead and hand over the control to Ashita Regidi. She'll just introduce herself quickly and take over the session.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Ashita. Yeah, you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, my name is Ashita Regidi. I'm a consultant for privacy compliance and also a specialist in technologies. And I'm a information specialist in European as well as Asian laws. So today I'd like to take you through the draft personal data protection bill. This was a draft law that was introduced last year and is expected to be introduced in Parliament in the upcoming session, and we'll get to know whether the bill will be enacted in its current form or if there will be any changes made to the law. So this is the first version of the bill that has come out, and I'll just take you through the key provisions of it and what you need to know as a company if you are seeking to comply with the law in the future. My screen has hung up. Just give me a minute, please. Okay, I'll just start telling you a little bit, give you all a slight background of data protection on India. Hopefully my screen will get going by then. So you have fundamentally, prior to the personal data protection bill, you had section 43A of the IT Act. This was your fundamental law on data protection, and this basically said that in case there is any loss of sensitive personal data and any wrongful loss or wrongful gain that is caused to another person, any harm that is caused to another person because of the loss of sensitive personal data, then there will be liability under the law. So you can see that this one simple provision leaves a lot wanting in terms of protecting your data adequately. And but this was all that was there, and even in terms of enforceability of the law, it was thus very limited because you were required to prove something like wrongful loss before you were able to hold anybody accountable. So even a mere data breach, if you cannot thereafter prove the harm that was caused because of it, then you are not liable under the law. So
Ashita,
apart from
because the
section,
screen is
yeah,
still not going to the next one. It's
no, it's just stuck. I don't know what has
okay.
happened.
Let me just try to take the control back and then you take it again.
Okay.
Try now.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happened, but the screen is just not working. I'll just continue with the presentation. I'm not sure why, but the screen isn't working. Yeah. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
See the first page. So if you go click
The
next,
key
maybe yeah,
collection of
it's
data.
working now. It's working. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so the main objectives of the session is to give you an overview of the salient features of the Personal Data Protection Bill to help you understand the steps you will need to take in order to prepare for this bill. And since some of you all may have already commenced compliance with the GDPR, I also want to help you all understand how compliance with the PDP bill will differ from GDPR. So to go through the session flow, I'll start with the background and context. I've already given you all a little bit of that. Then go on into the fundamental concepts, then the salient features of the PDP bill with a comparison with the GDPR, and key takeaways that you will need to keep in mind as you leave the session. So in terms of the background, data privacy law has not been very vast in India. I mentioned you mainly had section 43A that you can see on screen right now. And in addition, you had section 72A, which talked about any breach which happens while providing service under a lawful right. And apart from these two provisions, you had many scattered provisions under sectoral laws like, say, financial laws or medical laws. So you might have a confidentiality obligation or a non-disclosure obligation. So privacy laws mainly took this form. Apart from that, you had a little bit of the constitutional right to privacy. But a proper data protection law, which of the nature of the GDPR, was completely missing in India. So in fact, if you go into section 43A, you also have the IT reasonable security practices and procedures and sensitive personal data information rules, which in fact included many fundamental privacy principles which are part of any standard data protection law. For instance, collection limitation, notice requirements of deletion, purpose limitation. But despite all these fundamental privacy principles being present in the IT rules, because Section 43A is so limited in its scope, so the implementation by companies of these rules was very limited. The actual awareness of privacy and the actual consciousness to protect data, except from the perspective of cybersecurity, was not there. So it was in this background that the landmark judgment of K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India came into place, and here a 9-judge bench verdict declared the right to privacy as fundamental right in 2017. It fundamentally recognized the right to information and privacy as an interest in preventing information about the self from being disseminated and controlling the extent of and access to information. Now, in pursuance of this fundamental right to privacy, the 9-judge bench directed that a comprehensive data protection law be enacted in India. It was after this that Justice Sri Krishna panel was set up, and we received the first draft of the Personal Data Protection Bill. Now, to get into the fundamental concepts of the Personal Data Protection Bill, some of you all might be doing compliance with the privacy law for the first time, and some of you all might have already done some compliance with the GDPR. So the fundamental concepts will help those who are getting to know about a data protection law for the first time. So the key features of the Personal Data Protection Bill, to start with that. First of all, it combines a structure of the GDPR. Structurally, it is very similar to the GDPR, but it also combines certain features of the Information Technology Act. For instance, the adjudication mechanism that is established under the PDP bill is very similar to that under the IT Act. Apart from this, you have horizontal application, that is, the law applies to both the public and the private sector. So even governmental authorities are required to be compliant with this law. This is unlike the previous section 43A, where it applied only to body corporate. So even a government body, unless it is a body corporate, the Section 43A would not apply to it. So this changes with the Personal Data Protection Bill, and whether you're a private company or a government company or the government in itself, the law will apply to you. Next is extraterritorial application. That is, the applicability of the law is not restricted to the territorial jurisdiction of India. So even an entity that is outside India and which is handling data that is within the scope of this law will need to be compliant with the law. Then the next is creating a fiduciary relationship. Now, this is a new concept that is introduced under a data protection law around the world. The Indian law proposes a fiduciary relationship, which is that any company that handles data will now have to hold that data in a position of trust. So any decisions that the company takes for the data that it holds will have to be done keeping in mind that it is holding the data in trust. So say a simple concept like not using the data for a purpose that is very different from the purpose for which it was given in the first place. Now that would be a trust-based decision that a company would have to take. Now the next key feature of the Personal Data Protection Bill are the requirements of data mirroring and data localization. I'll get into these a little later. These are highly significant concepts under the new law. Next, it establishes a Data Protection Authority of India. And lastly, the compliance requirements are very similar to the GDPR. Now, to get into the fundamental concepts, the first thing you need to know is what is personal data. So any kind of information that you have on a natural person, or natural living person, which allows either direct or indirect identifiability of that person, will be personal data. It can be any character, it can be a trait, it can be an attribute. For example, a person's name will be personal data, his address will be personal data, an email address will be personal data. For example, even if you have a business email address of a person, that will also be considered to be personal data. An IP address is personal data because each of these allows you to identify a person. Now, a key thing to be noted on the Personal Data Protection Bill is that if you are only handling anonymous data or non-personal data, then the law will not apply to you. And in fact, the law is proposing an exemption for ad hoc and irregular processing of data, though this hasn't yet made it to the bill. Now, apart from personal data, which is the maximum provisions of the law apply to it, you also have what is known as sensitive personal data, or more sensitive data that requires a higher level of protection. So this could be health data, like say data about your mental or your physical health. It could be biometric data, say you are collecting a person's fingerprints for attendance purposes. And this is sensitive personal data. It can be an official identifier like an Aadhaar number or a PAN card number. It can be financial data, which includes even details like financial status, credit scores, credit histories. And it can also involve religious and political beliefs or caste. So basically, once you start compliance with the law, you will need to identify what personal data you hold and what kind of sensitive personal data you hold, understand what requirements apply to each. Now, a key point here, as I mentioned earlier, is data mirroring and data localization. Now, the law proposes that one serving copy of all personal data is to be held in a server or data center. And the next part is personal data cannot be transferred outside India at all. So critical personal data per se has not been defined at present. This report that is the bill that Aadhaar data or biometric or health data. What exactly which kinds of data will be subject to this requirement is yet to be specified. So you, in fact, apart from the PDP bill, you also have data localization requirements coming in from related laws such as the RBI, which required data in relation to payment companies to be stored within India only. You also have the draft e-commerce policy, which suggested that all data in relation to e-commerce be stored within India only. So you are also having data localization requirements under related laws that a company will now need to be aware of. Next, going to your next fundamental concept, who is a data fiduciary? So now, when you're dealing with data, there are three primary parties over there. One is the data fiduciary or the data principal, data controller under the GDPR. You have a data subject or the data principal under the PDP bill, and you have a processor. So the data fiduciary or the data controller is the primary person or entity which uses the data. He is the one who determines the process or the means of processing. So say you are a company, you collected certain data on your end, so you and your employee is the data principal. And now say as a company, you have hired a third party, say your accountant, to process certain data for the employee, say process their payments. Now that accountant becomes a processor. So the obligations that apply to each person, the data fiduciary, the processor, and the right of a data subject based on the role they play. So the best way to remember it is that if you are the person who is collecting and using the data, who determines how the data is to be used, if you are the key decision maker in relation to the data, then you are the data fiduciary. If you are the person who is following a data fiduciary's instructions on how to handle the data only, then you are a processor. And if you are the person whose data has been collected by data fiduciary, then you are the data principal. And a point that you need to remember here is that the law proposes to identify what are known as significant data fiduciaries based on criteria like the volume or sensitivity of data. Say you are handling a very large amount of data, or say you are handling criminal records data, which is highly sensitive data. Then you will be classified as a significant data fiduciary, and certain compliance requirements are restricted to a significant data fiduciary impact assessment, which is basically before you undertake a certain kind of processing, you need to carry out a DPIA to make sure that that processing is in compliance with the law. Then there are also record keeping requirements, that is, you need to keep records of how and what data you're processing. So even this is restricted to a significant data fiduciary. Another point that you need to remember here is that a data trust score is to be awarded by an auditor. the person who audits your data, say to carry out an audit requirement under the law, will award a data trust score, and this score will be public and will be used as a benchmark or a point of identifiability for, say, a data subject to determine how far he can trust you as a company with his data. So this will be a key requirement that companies will need to keep in order to demonstrate their compliance with the law and to win the trust of the people and ensure that they get to deal with the data they need. So I've covered data principle. One point to be remembered here is that the report accompanying the Personal Data Protection Bill is proposing an exemption for the data of foreign nationals. So an example would be like, say you have the BPO sector, which is handling a lot of data of foreign nationals, and there's a possibility that it will be exempted. However, we haven't yet received a confirmation of this, and this hasn't yet formed a part of the final bill. So a processor has also been covered. The next basic concept you need to understand is what is processing, what can compromise, what is within the scope of the law. So any operation or set of operations that you are performing on personal data will be processing. For example, say you're collecting data when you enter into a contract with a customer, this is processing. Say you are organizing or classifying your customers' data for better management, then that is processing. Even something like storing data or retrieving data from a database is processing. So something even like use, disclosure, organization, recording, structuring, each of these consists of processing and is within the scope of the law. Now to understand where the law is going, as I mentioned previously, the bill is to be presented in Parliament this June, and then we'll know about the fate of the law. The salient features of the Personal Data Protection Bill and to compare it with the GDPR. First, we can start with understanding the jurisdiction of the law. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the PDP bill has extraterritorial jurisdiction, so it isn't restricted to a company within India. Even a company outside India will be required to comply with the law. So now, for those who are familiar with the GDPR or undergone a compliance process, will know that for territorial jurisdiction, the first criteria you need to see is your enterprise or your entity in the European Union. So under the PDP bill, this becomes: are you an entity which is processing in India, or are you an Indian state, an Indian citizen, or are you a company that is incorporated in law? So if you are any of these things, if the answer is yes, then the GDPR or the PDP bill will apply. If the answer is no, then you go into the next part of the flowchart, which deals with extraterritorial jurisdiction. So you need to see two factors here. Does the data principal stay in India, or does the data principal is the data principal currently traveling in India? So if the answer is yes, next you go into does the processing that you are doing of that data. So to be understood, the second part is that the company is not an entity inside India. It is a company that is outside India that is dealing with the data of a data principal who is within India or who is traveling in India. Now, if the processing relates to the offering of goods and services, that is, you are offering goods or you're offering a service, you are selling something to a person within India, then the GDPR or the PDP bill will apply. If not, if you are monitoring behavior in some way or carrying out some kind of profiling, which is a kind of automated processing to judge certain characteristics about the person, even then the PDP bill will apply. Now, if all these criteria are no, that is, you are not dealing with a data principal who is either staying in India or who is traveling in India, or even if you are, but the processing that you are doing does not relate to the offering of goods and services, or does not relate to monitoring of behavior or profiling, then you go down the flowchart and it's a no, and the PDP bill will not apply. So what you can see from the structure is that it is very similar in its approach to the GDPR. And another second factor that you can see here is that much like the GDPR has a very broad jurisdiction, even the PDP bill is now going to have a very broad jurisdiction, and any company dealing with the data of millions will need to make sure that it is compliant with the law. Now, to get into the principles of processing, fundamentally what the law requires is that, say you have now identified your personal data, you have identified which data you need to keep within India only and which data you can keep outside India but need to keep a sovereign copy, that is your data mirroring and data localization requirements. Now we need to know how exactly you are going to process the data. Now for these, there are some fundamental principles that have been laid down. So the first is notice, that is you need to give a person proper notice that you are processing the data. The second is collection limitation, that is make sure that you don't collect any more data than you need. Like say you need to contact a person and you need their name and email address only for it. If you thereafter the address without any justification, then you are following the principle of collection limitation. Now, purpose limitation. Say you are sending communication in relate to a service to your customer, and you use the data to send them a marketing email. Now here you are using it for a different purpose from which it was intended. So this is a violation of the purpose limitation. Because you need to make sure that you use it for the same purpose for which the data was collected in the first place. There's storage limitation, which is after you no longer need the data in an identifiable form, you need to either anonymize it or erase it based on the requirements of the law. Then the next is data quality, that is make sure that your data is accurate, make sure that the integrity of the data is retained, make sure that it is up to date. And the last is accountability, that is make sure you are processing your data in a way that will be accountable under the law for that processing. Now, if you compare the requirements with the requirements under the GDPR, again, for those who have been applying with GDPR, you will see a major similarity between the requirements. Even though the first one, lawful, fair, and transparent, is specifically mentioned under the PDP bill, it is a requirement that is established on the whole through the law. Now to get into the next part, once you know how you are processing your data, the next is that you must make sure that you are processing your data with what is known as a lawful basis. That is, you can no longer just give your own justification for why you are processing data. You need to have a under the PDP bill, and only then you are allowed to process the data. So now the PDP bill has two main forms. The data principle, or the processing of your data must fall into an exemption under the law. So where consent is there, that's quite clear that the person has given his consent, so you are processing the data for a specific purpose. And exemption is the stuff of for compliance with law or a court order or an investigation or in relation to prevention of crime. All of these come into exemptions for which you are allowed to process data even without consent. An interesting new aspect under this law is that they have even proposed an exemption to processing of data for employment purposes and for processing of data for reasonable purposes. Now, reasonable purposes will be determined later on by the Data Protection Authority of India, but some examples that have been listed under the law at present are whistleblowing, debt and public available data. Now, this lawful basis that has been set out under the PDP bill is a bit problematic, mainly because it excludes what is known as legitimate interests. Now, under the GDPR, which you can see at the side, there are these 6 broad categories: consent, performance of contract, legal obligation, vital interest, public interest, and legitimate interest. Now, of these, what you would primarily use to demonstrate that you have a lawful basis is the first two, which is consent or performance of contract, and the last one, which is legitimate interest. So how legitimate interest works is, say you have got the details of a contact of the internet, and you have sent them a mail asking them if you are interested in receiving further communication from them. This is like a marketing activity. Now, such an activity would be permissible under the GDPR under the head of legitimate interest, which is a direct marketing activity. But the same thing option is not there under the PDP bill. So under the PDP bill, unless you have consent, you cannot do this. So this is a problem area, and we are hoping that there will be a solution, but there is no clarity at present about whether there will be on. So this establishes your lawful basis of processing. Now, I mentioned here that under the Indian law, you will now need consent. So consent plays a very significant role in the processing that you are going to do. So what are the requirements of consent? What form of consent is valid? So you may know older ways in which consent was taken, like say you would have in your tucked away in your terms and conditions somewhere, you would have a clause that says that by reading these terms and conditions you consent. Or say you have a form that people fill out and there will be a pre-tick checkbox on it. So now these forms of consent are no longer valid under the new law. The new law requires consent to be free, informed, specific, clear, and capable of being withdrawn. So by fee, it basically means that you can no longer insist on gaining consent. Like say someone wants to obtain a service from you, you cannot insist that they consent to receive a marketing mail in order to receive the servicing for you, because that consent is not free and is not valid under the law. Similarly, you cannot take consent that is not specific. So if there is a checkbox, have a specific checkbox for every single purpose that you want to use the data for. Basically, you need to be conscious of your consent forms. So like you cannot send a marketing mail to sign up for a newsletter alone. And another key object that we need to remember here, that must be capable of being wrong. That is, the person should easily be able to tell you that no, I am no longer consenting of my data, and you see the use of the data. Now the next part is the transferring of data outside India. Now, in order to be able to do this, you need to fulfill certain conditions. One is that the DPI and the central government will approve transfers to certain sectors or certain international organizations. So an equivalent for those familiar with the GDPR is the adequacy decision. For instance, some of y'all might have heard of the privacy shield. Like say you're using AWS, Amazon services, and you know that it is EU's privacy shield compliant. An example of an adequacy decision, we have the equivalent under the GDP bill, which is transferred to a specific country with the approval of the DPA. That can be used of contractual clauses, which is basically you will have to enter into a contract with the entity that is outside India with whom you are to whom you are sending the data, and fundamentally the contract will will list out the data protection obligations of the receiving entity. Now next you have intra-group schemes, which is also known as a binding, which is say you are a large multinational corporation with many different entities. Then you can use an intra-group scheme for the transfer of the data. Okay, so the last is a situation of necessity. So there may be a situation of necessity where for an emergency, a medical emergency for which data is outside India. So such transfer can be done with this method is also very similar to the process taken under the GDPR. Now to the next step. We've been discussing what you need to do in order to make sure that you are processing your data. The data subject have say you're collecting data on your employees, your customers. So now what rights do they have? What you need to do for them? So on the PDP bill, primary right that they have is transparency. That say you are required to provide them with notice and tell them that we are collecting your data. This is what we are doing with your data. So you have to be transparent in your use of their data. Then the next is the right to confirmation and access, which is the data subject has a right to get a confirmation from you about whether or not you are processing data, and they have a right to access. That is, they can ask you to hand over a copy of their data to them so they know exactly what kind of data you have. Now say they have asked for confirmation and received access to the data that you have on them, and they find that it needs to be corrected in some form, or say it needs to be updated. So they also have a right to correction under the law. After this, now say a data principal wants to go from one data fiduciary to the other. Like say you are a life insurance company and you have the data and they want to shift from you to another life insurance company. Now they have a right to data portability, which finally they can ask this life insurance company to hand over whatever data they have on them in an easy machine readable form. And this machine readable form, the data can be transferred directly to the other data fiduciary, which is the other life insurance company, and so that this life insurance company can carry on processing your data more easily. So this is the right to data portability. The last right that a data subject is granted is the right to be forgotten. Now, this is not a right to erasure. The PDP bill, in fact, does not grant a right to erasure as you'd find under the GDPR. That is, a data principal cannot come to you and say, delete all my data that you have on me. But you do have the right to withdraw consent. So wherever consent is your basis of processing data, there a data principal can come up to you and say that I withdraw my consent, and so you will need to cease the use of data. So even though there is no right to erasure beyond the right to withdrawal of consent, the PDP bill has granted a limited right to be forgotten, or more precisely, a right to restrict disclosure. So data principal can approach you and say that they do not want you to publicly disclose their data anymore. So you may be familiar with the case Google, where certain search results that were coming up on Google showed certain crimes that a person had committed. So that person approached the coach and asked for that link to be removed from the Google search results. So this led to the right to be forgotten, as it was popularly known. That is, the public disclosure of that information, the crime that person had committed, was no longer allowed, and Google was obliged to remove those details from the search results. So now the right to be forgotten under the PDP bill has taken this form. If you compare the provisions with the GDPR, you can see certain differences. First of all, the right to erasure is missing. Then the right to restrict processing or object to processing is missing. Then you no longer have a right against automated decision making, but perhaps this right is a little premature in the Indian context because automated decision making isn't as prevalent in India as it is abroad. So now to kind of sum up on what you need to do in order to comply with the law, this slide gives you an overview of the compliance that you will have to do. One is, make sure that the processing that you're doing is by following the principles of processing, like say collection limitation, purpose limitation, notice, etc. Next, establish that you have a lawful basis. For example, make sure you have consent or an exemption to consent. Then provide proper notice, then adhere to storage limitation requirements, make sure that you are providing data subjects with their rights. Then fundamental privacy by design requirements, that is, say you're setting up a software that is using the data, make sure that the software by its very design is privacy compliant. Then you have requirements of data breach notifications. Then again, you have DPI record keeping data audit requirements. Now companies are required to have a data protection officer within India. Lastly, say you are hiring a processor, you need to make sure that you have a proper contract with them. And lastly, if you are data out of India, you need to make sure that you fulfill one of those conditions, like an inter-group scheme or a standard contractual clause. Now, briefly to go into the enforceability of to what extent the rule is enforceable. One is your requirement of a data breach notification, that is, if there is any unauthorized or accidental disclosure, acquisition, sharing, etc. of data, and this disclosure, acquisition, etc. in some way compromises the confidentiality or integrity of the data, then a data breach has occurred. For example, say you send an email to the wrong address. So this is a data breach. Say you granted access to the wrong employee in your company, access to certain confidential data or certain personal data, then this is a data breach. Now, what do you do once you discover that a data breach has occurred? So the first thing you need to do is assess if it is likely to cause harm to a data principal. Now, the term harm has been defined under the law a little vaguely. It requires either mental or physical injury, loss of property or reputation, identity theft, discrimination, denial of restriction of free speech, or surveillance. Now, it isn't clear on what basis these specific criteria of harm were selected, but this list-based approach has been taken, so this is what we will have to follow. So if the data breach results to any of these, then you will be first required to notify the Data Protection Authority of India. Thereafter, you will be required to notify the data principals directly or put up a notice on your website. The second part of this requirement will be decided by the Data Protection Authority of India, but you have to, which is that if you determine that a harm is likely to be caused, then you have to notify the Data Protection Authority of India. Next, the data fiduciaries are required to have a grievance redressal system. That is, if any data principal has an issue with the way in which you're processing your data or some other issue, then they can approach you directly through your grievance redressal system. Now, in order to make sure that the law is enforceable, an adjudication procedure has been established. Now, here you see a similarity with the IT Act, where step one is you file a complaint with an adjudicating officer appointed under the PDP bill. Appeal from that would be to the appellate tribunal, which is also set up under the PDP bill, and an appeal from the appellate tribunal is directly to the Supreme Court of India. So as the appellate tribunal will more or less be at the level of a high court in terms of enforceability of the PDP bill. Now, the penalties, the GDPR is most famous for its huge fines, which is up to 10 million euros or 2% of the company's annual global turnover, or up to 20 million euros and or 4% of the company's annual global turnover. Now, the Indian law has also prescribed very huge penalties. The first category for lighter violations is a penalty of up to rupees 5 crore or 2% of the annual global turnover, or up to rupees 15 crores or 4% of the company's annual global turnover. Part of the aim of imposing such heavy penalties is to ensure that that companies, at least for the fear of receiving these penalties, make sure that they are compliant with the law. Now, a new part of the Personal Data Protection Bill, which is not there under the GDPR, is that it includes criminal offenses under the PDP bill. For example, if you are obtaining or transferring or selling personal data in a way that is contrary to the Personal Data Protection Bill in any way, this would be a criminal offense. Say you are re-identifying de-identified personal data, this would be an offense under the bill. An interesting part is the offenses are cognizable and non-bailable. That is, you can be arrested without a warrant and you cannot get bail for it. And punishments can go up to 5 years or even up to 3 lakhs. Now, at the beginning of the presentation that the law applies horizontally, it applies to the public and the private sector. So you have specific provisions with these describing how the central or state government can be proceeded against, and how any state authority can be proceeded against, or even how a company could be proceeded against. So now this gives you an overview of the law so far. So the key takeaways, what do you need to remember as you leave this session? One is that if you are dealing with Indian data in any way, whether you are inside India or outside India, you will have to make sure that you are compliant with the law. Second point that you need to remember is that you cannot adopt a one-size-fits-all approach to privacy. That is, say you are already compliant with privacy regulations of another country, it isn't possible to directly adapt these in order to comply with the new law. Each law is separate approach, the nuances are different, so your compliance approach will have to vary based on that. The next point is data mirroring and data localization are going to be a significant cost to a company, and it's a major requirement to identify and separate the data and comply with these requirements. But there are several indications that data localization is here to stay. So we are not really expecting these clauses to be removed from the final bill, even though there is a lot of talk against these requirements. The next is the data trust score is going to be a very significant part of compliance, of demonstrating your compliance with the law in future and in winning the trust of the data principal. You need to make sure that they have good data trust scores. And the last point you need to remember is that consent is going to play a very crucial role in data protection in India. Lastly, not only the upcoming law, but also be conscious of sectoral. For instance, mentioned the RBI earlier with its norms for data localization for payment systems. You also have like Disha, which tells you how you should deal with health data. Be aware of very privacy regulations that are in place. So this sums up the Personal Data Protection Bill. Does anyone have any questions at this stage? Mr. Jain, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much, Shita. So it was definitely a great session. We'll just wait for any questions that will come in. If you can use the chat window and maybe send across your questions. Maybe we'll give it a minute or so in case someone has questions. Otherwise, you can always send it across to us. I guess as of now, we don't have any specific questions. thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Ashita, for taking the session. It was a great experience learning about the new regulation that will come up. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.